Welcome to Widdershins. I'm Tony, and this evening we are going to break down an antique vintage Civitas pocket watch movement. And the goal of this is really just to learn. So I'm going through a series of movements now where I'm just continuously disassembling and reassembling them over and over again, same movement, just to see whether or not we can make it better than when we picked it up for the first time. Now, this one's actually going to be an interesting trick because it's in pretty decent shape already. It's actually already running at 0 seconds per day with relatively high amplitude, although it also has relatively high beat error at about 10 milliseconds. So our first goal is really going to be just to take it apart and get it back together again and running, and seeing if we can do that a couple of times. So I'll record at least this first one and we can go from there. And I've got a Presto tool here to get the hands off. If this was a movement that we cared about, we clearly would use a dial protector. But as we don't care too much about the cosmetics on this one, we are just going to go ahead and pull them off, which we have now done. And we're going to start setting everything aside. This dial, sort of surprisingly to me, doesn't seem to actually have any dial screws. It seems to just sort of come off on its own, or it's loose at least. It doesn't mean it's easy. It still wants to be a little bit obstinate. It's acting a bit like it is screwed in, but there are clearly no visible screws around the exterior. It does lift just enough to make me think that it's not. We'll give it one more try before we start to disassemble the backside and take a different look at it. Okay. Right. We're going to let down the mainspring because we've still got quite a bit of power in there right now. Okay. We'll see if we can do this with a bench key without actually without causing any damage. So I'm just going to pull the click back, and I'm going to try to let it down. It doesn't seem to be coming out, actually, which is a little unexpected. There we go, there we go. Okay. Hopefully the balance should be coming to a stop here momentarily. Yep. He's slowing down. Those pellet jewels just want to stop. Okay. All right. start with the crown wheel. And that's a reverse threaded wheel. It's an interesting mounting area there. That's new to me. And if this was a movement that we cared more about, we would probably be wearing more protection for our fingers and avoiding contact with the balance wheel. I just redressed my VOH screwdrivers this evening to try to get them just a little bit narrower for some of these vintage style screws, which are in general a sharper angle. And I want to be a little careful here as we take this off, just in case we get a flying click spring. So I'm going to start just, okay. I'm just going to be ever so gentle. He's just a little guy. Okay. So I'm going to just apply a bit of pressure in the hopes that he doesn't go flying. And then I'm going to take some bronze tweezers. And there he comes. It's an interesting click spring. That's a different shape than I am typically used to. Normally I'm used to them being just a little bit more substantial than that. And I apologize for the shake on the overhead camera. I've got some sorbethane isolation pads coming in a couple of days that hopefully will help. I was excited when I got the overhead camera sort of in a working state, thinking I had vibration reduction on my older Nikon DSLR. And turns out I do have vibration reduction on this lens, but what I don't have is vibration reduction when you're shooting in 4K, which I don't actually need to do for the stream, but because the stream is only coming across in 1080p. But I'm recording the source because the goal here in general is to produce static YouTube content that is a little bit more polished and produced than just these live streams. All right. Take off these case screws just to get them out of the way. I'm still searching for the best positioning for my side cameras to where my hands won't be in the way as I'm working. It may be that I just need to get more used to the idea of not having my hands in the way. All right, let's go ahead and remove the balance cock just to get him out of the way. Keep him nice and safe. Just trying to get a little corner here. But if I can't, no big deal. I can use the tweezers in a moment. There we go. All right, we got a corner. Okay. And then I'm just going to go underneath here and very gingerly grab both the balance wheel and the balance cock itself. It didn't come out super cleanly, so I'm just going to come back in here and give it just a little more nudge first. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. And the whole assembly comes out. Obviously with 0 seconds per day, 1 second per day on the existing timing, Hairspring's in pretty good shape. You know, one of the things I am least comfortable with, and in fact quite terrified of the idea of any sort of balance repair at this point in my watchmaking journey. If there's something wrong with the balance, I am not at all confident in my ability to straighten a hairspring or replace balance staves. And in general, I'm sure I will get there. And I have an entire drawer full of movements to learn on. But today, the goal is less about focusing on the balance and more about just taking apart an already working movement, cleaning it, putting it back together, lubricating as we go, and having it be, we would hope, no worse once it's complete than where we started. And I wonder if that crazy little screw there is what was holding the dial on. That's not a screw or mechanism that I'm familiar with. It's not where I expect to find a screw in the middle of the main plate. Let's see if the dial comes off now. And it comes right off. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of a cool mechanism. It's also terrifying because I don't know if you can tell. There's this little piece of brass here that looks like if you were not gentle, would shear right off, and then you'd really have likely very little way to get the dial back on. Now that we've got the dial off, we're going to go ahead and remove a couple extra pieces here. We've got the balance off, so we've actually got a little bit more wiggle room in terms of safety, which is nice. Can be a little less ginger. I actually learned about a mechanism for removing cannon pinions the other day that I want to try. Probably shouldn't do it on a mechanism I'm trying to make better, but I do want to try this. And that mechanism is using a pin vise. And taking a pin vise, sliding it directly over the cannon pinion, adding friction, and pulling straight up. some of the feedback I was seeing in the comments thread where this was being suggested was a fear that, you know, if you're not careful, that you could bend the center wheel pivot. So I'm going the wrong way. Not off to a good start here. Okay. We're doing it live. If this doesn't work, I'll actually just go back to the Presto tool, which ought to work fine. But I figured since we're trying, let's try. Okay. Oh, I don't like the way that feels. It feels too tight. Which of course is the point of a pin vise. We're going to try this one more time, and if it feels as tight as I think it's going to... Oh, there. Well, came off. That worked like a champ. Just visually, center wheel pivot still seems straight. Nothing too crazy. Hopefully the cannon pinion itself isn't bent or misshapen. Cannon pinion's kind of a tricky little guy. You know, he's relatively resilient, but he's friction fit, right? And so if you bend him, trying to get a closer view there. Yeah, I don't think my depth of field is going to allow it. If you bend him or, you know, just get him, you know, too loose, you're kind of hosed. And you're going to have quite a bit of difficulty in fixing that if you are, as I am, a less experienced watchmaker. It's an interesting little wheel. It's a tiny little guy. Let's see if these guys will fall out yet. I'm curious how this guy is going to play into anything. There doesn't seem to be an obvious way to remove it. It's not a mechanism, as I said earlier, that I'm familiar with, so we'll see when we get there. We'll see when we get there. All right. Let's keep going. I'm doing my best to use my VOH screwdrivers for actually unscrewing. I'm using my Bergeon screwdrivers for prizing and brute force work. Okay. Train bridge is off. We've got our center wheel here, the extra pinion. I'll start removing the rest of the train of wheels. we can get these guys out of here without hurting anybody too badly. Here's the escape wheel. Here's the third wheel. There's the fourth wheel. All right. Let's keep going here with the barrel bridge. Thank you all for hanging out with me on the live stream. We're still mostly in a mode where I am working out the technical kinks with actually performing the streams and the eventual produced content. So I'm not at the moment really able to engage with chat or similar. So I apologize if anyone is typing anything there. We'll get better. We can do better, and we will. And again, it feels wrong to be grabbing everything with my hands, ungloved, unfinger-cotted. But it's not a movement that we care deeply about. And in fact, in some ways, having something to clean... Ooh, that mainspring is... That barrel is jumping open already before I even get to it. It'll be interesting to see what we find. That is a thinner barrel than I would have expected. Thinner than most of the pocket watch barrels that I have previously encountered in a 16 size movement. I'm just going to push the arbor out. For some reason, it got stuck in the middle of my anvil there. Okay. I'm going to try not to throw the arbor. Oh, mainspring doesn't look crazy. It's actually fairly normal looking mainspring in terms of size. The barrel did seem shallow to me, but who knows? Probably don't have a good eye for these things just yet. Okay, we're going to take the mainspring out, even though that's probably a mistake. But I do want to clean the barrel. We may really just clean the barrel once. I'm going to start to lever it just a little. There we go. We got the first little coil out. And then I'm going to do my best to very gingerly, this is so shallow, we're going to try. When you do this the right way by hand, you kind of alternate your thumbs. Let it flip a half turn, and then there you go. All right, all right. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. All right. That went better than I expected. Okay. And we do have the curly Q facing this direction inside the barrel for when I put it back together. All right, good stuff. There's a little bit of debris, dust, probably very old grease on the mainspring. So we'll clean that up separately, and then we'll use the mainspring winders to get her back in. All right. Barrel doesn't look too crazy. It's relatively clean. There's a little bit of, I can't tell yet if that's oxidation or just old lubricant. We'll run it through the watch parts cleaning machine and see what happens. All right. Let's move the pallet bridge out and away. Just gonna nudge the pallet fork to the other side while I so unceremoniously try to get my screwdriver under. There we go. Okay. Take a look at the pallet stones under magnification. In fact, I'll just grab a loop right now, but yeah, there's no way that's gonna work, right? That would be crazy. You can almost see it. Yeah, it's a little too, I'm trying a little too hard. Oh. You can kind of see. Yeah, the stones look like they're in reasonable shape. Shellac seems okay. We'll still run that through the watch parts cleaning machine and see how it comes out. Now that is a great big screw. It is kind of funny how big that screw is. All right, so we've got 2 yokes and a spring here. At least 1 spring. I'm not sure exactly what that piece there is. We'll see what he is. But I do want to be extra careful that we don't send this spring flying. And it does seem like we are now uncovering the spring. So I'm going to very carefully remove this screw. And I'm going to put him over here. And then I am, even though it looks like the spring is already not under tension, I'm still going to take my pegwood. Yeah, okay, we're not under tension. Good. Whew! My floor in this room is very much not a single color. And so if we lose a screw, it's just gone forever. We'll never see it again. That is a very, very tiny screw. This is the smallest screwdriver that I possess. I probably could have been using the movement holder instead of the casing cushion, but I kind of like the way the the casing cushion works. Oh, interesting. It is really on there too. I feel my screwdriver twisting. We're gonna try one more time with a slightly larger screwdriver, and if this cams out on me or twists, okay, what's turning? What I was gonna say is if we can't cleanly get it off, I don't care too much about getting this guy out for cleaning, but it looks like we won't have to make that call. It's such an interesting part. I do wonder if that is intended to come out or not. We will see momentarily. Kind of looks like it doesn't come out. Yeah. It looks like maybe at the factory they jammed that in there. Whatever that is. And what I'm talking about here, what I'm talking about here is this longish piece here. And it looks like a piece of steel jammed into the main plate that is probably a guide for those yokes, if I had to guess. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Okay, so we're down to the main plate. We've got everything disassembled. What I'm actually going to do now is put the balance back in. And the reason I'm going to do that is because we're actually going to send the balance cock through the watch parts cleaning machine, assembled and in place. And the reason I do that is the hope that it will be a little less brutal on the hairspring. Boy. As I said, the scariest part of the movement for me is definitely the hairspring. Here we go, we're sitting, balance is rotating freely. Let's get her screwed in. Balance is still rotating freely. Okay, so now when we send this through the watch parts cleaning machine, the idea is that it'll be held mostly in place. You know, once it's in the machine, in the liquid, you know, it's not actually getting torqued and swished around too much. But still, this gives us a little bit more comfort. We'll place this one right on top of the cleaning basket. So I built a watch parts cleaning machine, and the reason I did that is they're outrageous. They're outrageously expensive. It's kind of crazy. As a hobbyist, you know, the absolute cheapest manual machine, unless you're buying a vintage, usually in pretty bad shape, 100-year-old, maybe not quite 100-year-old version on eBay. Cheapest you're going to find those vintage ones. You know, if you're lucky and it's operational, I'd say $400 or $500. But honestly, you know, even though I have a background in electrical and computer engineering, I'm not super comfortable with the idea of plugging a 100-year-old device with frayed wires into my home. And so if you're talking about something more modern, something new, it's minimum $1,000 for something used, but from this century. And then as you start to talk about the truly new devices, we're talking minimum $3,000-4,000. And then when you start talking about something that either integrates ultrasonics or goes to an automatic watch parts cleaning machine, you're starting to creep up towards 10 grand, and it's a little bit hard to justify when my goal here is to clean some old movements. But I mean, if you need it professionally, you need it professionally. And so what I did was I actually found online there's a device called the Kiwi Cleaner. It's designed by a guy out of New Zealand, hence the name Kiwi. And it's pretty cool. It's a neat little machine, and it works great. You 3D print the parts. You buy a couple $100 worth of stuff, maybe not even a couple $100 worth of stuff off of AliExpress and Amazon, a couple other places, and you've got a pretty functional manual watch parts cleaning machine. It's pretty great. It was an excuse for me to quote unquote need a 3D printer again. That is a very tiny screw, so we're gonna hold off on putting him anywhere. Actually got the teeny tiny basket here. For the itty bittiest. I'm not really spending too much time putting any rhyme or reason towards which basket I'm placing these in, which, I may regret. But we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and put the pallet fork in. I'm actually going to put it in the tiny basket. It's a toss-up. I have not had any trouble yet with the watch parts cleaning solution that I've been using, which is L&R Extra Fine, for about a 5-minute wash and a total of another 7-8 minutes of rinse across 2 rinses. The fear is that the pallet stones are held in place with it's basically like a natural glue called shellac. And your fear is that the shellac will actually come off, and that would be very bad. If that shellac were to come off, you'd have to re-shellac it, and again, that's sort of beyond my skill level at the moment, and so we would much rather just keep everything intact and not have to worry about it. But the handful of vintage pocket watch movements that I have cleaned thus far, it has not been a problem. Okay, I'm just checking the area to see if there's anything that we have forgotten. Not actually a ridiculously large number of parts in this particular movement. I feel like typically my cleaning basket is more full up. But I think we are now in pretty good shape. I'll put all this together. I'll drop this guy on top. I'm actually going to put the balance on top. See if we can basically lock these guys in a little bit better. Lid goes on top. Basket goes in. Give it a little press. Tighten the chuck. And I think we are ready to clean. All right. I'm not going to make you all watch the cleaning. I will do that offline, and I will stream again when we are ready to go, which may be a couple of days. We'll see. Just sort of depends on how the week goes. But thank you very much for hanging out with me for just a little bit. And we'll see if we can get this thing running just a little bit better next time. Thanks, y'all. Take care.